panelists are all here. So I'm Mariellen Zuckerman. I'm the Dean of the School of Business at SUNY Geneseo. And I'm delighted to welcome everyone here to our New York City alumni panel. This is something we do every fall and every spring. And we've taken advantage of the virtual environment to be able to include people outside of New York City. So I know we have people from upstate here and as far away as Connecticut and Utah. I mean, Connecticut's not that far, but Utah. And wherever Bob Murray is, which I don't know where he is.
South Carolina.
Okay, sounds wonderful. So I'm delighted that you're all here, and we have a great moderator tonight, but if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and at the right point in time when there's a chance, I can let Bob know what those chat questions are. And we do have a program for tonight's event. If we were together in person, it would be a paper program, but Amanda has put the program website up in the chat. So if you want to get more information about any of the individuals on the panel and the programs, you can take a quick look at that. So that being said, I'm going to turn things over to our BAC New York City chair. We have with us also Michelle Kane, our Rochester, Western New York BAC chair. With us tonight is John Ohlert, this is his first event, I guess, chair as New York City BAC chairperson. So John?
Thank you, Mariellen. Hello, everybody. It is nice that we're finally approaching some nice weather, puts everybody in a better mood for these type of events. Alumni Engagement and Impact in a Transformational World is a really great title. And when you think about it, right, that they're timely topics, but they're pretty much timeless in so many ways. You know, Geneseo, many other institutions facing kind of, you know, challenges. But I think what a panel like this does is provide some visibility in the things that we've been working to do better, and many people have, you know, been able to take advantage of. But now, you know, we can try and put some more visibility to it and leverage it a bit more. So when you think about mentoring, clubs, executive in residence, recruiting, one-on-one career development, you know, the more we can share those stories, I think it becomes a differentiator for the college. And as we work our way through the challenges of the day, that may be exactly what makes Geneseo stand out. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones as well. So for those that, you know, I haven't met before, welcome. And I really hope you enjoy the evening. I have seen Bob Boyd moderate a few events. I actually think Ken Rendy might be in trouble of being the all-time moderator leader at this pace, but, you know, we can always recruit Ken back to another event. So I really, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just do want to emphasize that through the BAC, be it New York, upstate, Michelle and I, you know, now co-chairs, Bob Murray, the former co-chair and still on the executive committee. You know, it's through this coordination with Mariellen and the BAC and kind of tapping into what alumni, you know, so willingly want to offer is, I think, what really sets us apart. So for those of you that will be alumni in the not too distant future, don't worry, we'll be tracking you down and looking for your participation at some point. But, you know, I've been involved for, I think, better part of a decade. And I've really enjoyed it. And this topic is near and dear to my heart because I was fortunate to have a lot of students end up working at Fitch who went on to have some really good careers, and I'm still in close contact with them. So so I really hope you you get a lot out of tonight. I know Bob will lead the charge, and thank you to all the panelists. So with that, I'll kick it over to Bob, and I'll see you all later.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mariellen. I think this is a great time to reflect on how the alumni have engaged with our students at all different levels. And when you see some of the stories, I think it's a growth opportunity for everybody, not just the students, but the alumni, especially when the world is changing as we've seen over the past year. I don't think any of us a year ago would have thought this is where we would be. We thought we would be at the University Center there up on 57th Street, having a very nice event and having cocktails and all that. But we're here now. So I'd like to start by call on Steve Barth, and we're going to start talking about mentors. So Steve, if you could sort of introduce yourself, but what is mentorship and how did it come about and how did you get involved?
Sure, thanks, Bob. So my name is Steve Barth. I graduated in 2013, and yeah, mentorship has always been, important to me. And I think in terms of getting involved with the mentorship program, I think like many people, my involvement with the school is shaped by my experience at the school. And what stands out first and foremost is the many awesome relationships that I made and have continued on to this day. And a whole host of people, but two that really stand out at the top are two that are actually here tonight, Bob Murray and Steve Mattis, who have been just tremendous mentors to me through my career, through my life, really. And so, the reason for getting involved is sort of a tribute to them, to be able to, connect people and hopefully have them benefit from this, in the same way that I have. I had two tremendous mentors throughout my career. So that's why I got involved. In terms of how I got involved, the problem was pretty simple. And it's a good problem to have, that we've got a ton of alumni who want to be involved and want to be engaged. And we've got a lot of young, bright students. And so really the issue is matching those up. And that's what we've tried to create with the mentorship program, is just a forum and a platform for those two sides of demand to meet. And so we've had some good success so far. We're 2 years into it. We've certainly learned a lot over the course of the last 2 years. And I think, from here, it's just continuing to learn and grow and improve the product and grow the product so that we can, as many people as possible can benefit.
What is the most important thing that you've learned from doing this, both as a mentor and helping us organize this?
Yeah, I think I think we've learned the importance of process. Originally, we tried to keep this pretty loose so that people could kind of grow organically and develop relationships organically. But I think one of the points of feedback that we've consistently got is, there are best practices in terms of mentorship. And so to continue to instill those best practices, I think taking ourselves back to sophomore year at Geneseo, what we knew about the world then and what we know about the world now are two very different things. So starting at the beginning and really walking through what are the different career options and helping students with that gives them kind of ideas and inspiration in terms of which avenues to explore.
Excellent, thank you. What we're going to do now is have a couple of mentors and mentees share their experiences. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with you, Zach. You're going to introduce Bowen, and then Bowen, you're going to introduce Zach. So Zach, why don't you go ahead?
All right, way to put me on the spot, Professor. I appreciate that. I'm just kidding.
I knew you would do well.
Thank you. The mentorship program had its inception in November of 2019. And my first conversation with my mentor happened on November 9th, 2019. And my mentor is Bowen Wu. He's a biotech equity analyst at Raymond James. He works in Midtown Manhattan, and he's one of the top people I go to for my healthcare questions when I have any questions related to healthcare related to the Student Managed Investment Fund. And then I think, I hope I covered enough. I'm going to pass it off to you, Bowen.
Sure. So hi everyone. I'm Bowen. So I had the privilege of being Zach's mentor. So Zach is currently a junior at the School of Business. He's also minoring in dance. And I've been fortunate enough to mentor him for quite a while now. And we've been able to kind of grow and develop kind of experiences of working in the real world. And very excited for Zach to start at KPMG this summer for his internship.
How has the relationship evolved between the two of you? I mean, you didn't know each other prior to November 9th, 19th. How has it evolved over time?
So what happened was I had emailed him before November 9th, and I introduced myself. I called him Mr. Wu, and he said, please call me Bowen. And we set up a date for me to call him. And then we worked out that I would call him at least monthly. If I had any questions, I could contact him via LinkedIn, via text message, whatever works best for him. And since then, I've been calling him monthly. Over the summer, he helped me with my resume. He helped me with internships that I was applying to. He helped me with just any broad questions I had, whether that be towards the biotech industry, finance, the broader macroeconomy. And that's how we've been doing it ever since. Bowen?
Yeah, so definitely what I would say. And I think one thing to add, you know, like this was pre-COVID when we first met. So around the time that I believe it was Zach's, I don't remember which break it was, but we were able to arrange a time where, considering that Zach lives on Long Island and my office is in Midtown, we actually were able to set up a time to actually meet in person. And this was in the beginning. And actually, I remember it was a weekend, and typically no one's in my office on the weekend. So I asked Zach to if he wanted to come visit my office, and I gave him like a tour of our office. It wasn't too exciting; it was just a plain office. But I think one thing that was exciting, personally for me, was showing him a trading floor. So our trading floor is not the biggest, but it's definitely a pretty decent sized trading floor. But so yeah, definitely being able to expose Zach to kind of a business environment, like actually physically an office environment. I think that was pretty cool. And then yeah, we got to get food, and I may or may not have expensed it to my firm, but yeah. So I think that was a pretty good thing in the beginning to actually meet in person. But granted, this was pre-COVID. Yeah.
How's your relationship kept going? How come it didn't just peter out? What's kept it moving?
I like to think I'm a very stubborn person. If I have questions, I won't be afraid to ask them. And Bowen can attest to this. I don't ask the easiest of questions to him. And it's not because I just do so. I try and think of questions that might be thought-provoking that I might want to use to impress him.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to add to, like, I don't think Zach is like intentionally doing it, and the fact that like really like Zach's questions are like on a very high level and very like macro perspective, and coming from someone who's working in a very niche space in biotech, a lot of times like I have to like step back and think about the question that Zach asked me, because it's very like very high level, very broad reaching perspective market questions. So definitely very inquisitive questions that Zach always has.
Have you learned from Zach?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of times things that, so whenever we catch up every month, we really start off the conversation with like, you know, like what's happening in the market, in the economy. And a lot of times, you know, Zach breaks down very simple events into very like macro, into a very macro perspective. So I think that's definitely a very good skill to have in the real world. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think definitely it's something that Zach always does time and time again. Yeah.
Great. What have you gotten out of this, Zach?
I've learned so much about the finance world that you would never learn in a classroom. Bowen has taught me a lot of firsthand experience that the classroom just does not prepare you for. He's taught me all the ins and outs. I remember when we were going through his office, I could still picture all the Bloomberg terminals, and he would say, you know, because of, you know, what happened back in 2008, now there's a wall between research and investing. And not that you necessarily have to know stuff such as that when you're in a classroom, but it's all the little things that you never think about. that add on to what you're trying to do, the goals you're trying to accomplish, etc.
Okay, excellent, excellent. The next the people that are going to talk are those one that started this year. So I'll start this time with Julia. Can you introduce Jaidyn?
Of course. So Jaidyn is my mentee. She's fantastic. She's a junior, but she's graduating early. So it made it even more fun to try to get her an internship this summer. She's a business admin major with a minor in marketing. So very similar paths, which was a good reason we were paired together. And she has officially signed the papers, and she's going to Burlington Coat Factory for an internship, fully paid, very proud. And it's going to set her up for success through a rotational program for merchandising, which I have no experience in. So it was definitely a fun time getting used to that industry, as well as giving my little tips and tricks that I found through marketing.
Okay. So Jaidyn, who's Julia?
Julia is my mentor. I met her, like she said, in the fall through Professor Boyd. He introduced us. I didn't know I was looking for a mentor at the time, honestly. I just described what I needed out of someone, and he kind of led me to her, and we are very similar. But she graduated in 2018, so we don't have that much time apart in between us, but she has perfect experience that I need and gained from her. So.
Okay. How do you think that the fact that you were matched up, were you surprised? Either are you surprised about your personal characteristics being so similar to each other?
At first, I think Julia can also agree, but at first I was like very shocked because I didn't see it at our first meeting. Actually, my first initial reaction, I disappointed Julia so badly because I was on my phone for our first meeting, and that's kind of like what set the tone for our entire relationship, because she kind of laid down our expectations right there and then, and that was the last time I learned very quickly. But yeah, so I feel like she would probably agree in that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm someone who doesn't like to just, if I have time, I'm going to use it, and our meeting ended early. So I hopped on a phone with her that day to start the tone and those types of things. I'm born and bred in New York. We don't really do the fluff. We like to get it out of the way right away. And I also think with this program in general, like if you're volunteering, it's a volunteer basis on both sides. So like you want to be there and you want to help, but it's on the other side as well. So because of that, if I'm putting time into something or someone, I expect the same time back with the same energy and respect. I also think though, the best way to prepare someone for something is to tell them exactly how it is. Of course, there's kindness and care, and that's where it comes from.
But you say it as it is. I know that. That's just like, you're not going to hide anything, Julia. If it is what it is, that's what it is. It comes out.
It comes out. I mean, I've gotten a little bit more filtered since college, which is good.
Really? Good. I'm glad.
I think that's maturity. But I think a big part of this too is understanding where and how things are going to go. And if you can set yourself up for that success from the very beginning, instead of having not wishy-washy conversations or not knowing the expectations, you're not setting yourself up for that straight path to what that goal was, which is her internship.
Absolutely. So do you think Julia helped you get this helped you prepare for this internship?
I truthfully do not think I would have gotten the internship without Julia's assistance. I have always had the dream to go through the merchandising field, but I I've always wanted to move out of this area, but I never would take that leap. I needed the encouragement. I needed the push. When I met Julia, I didn't have a LinkedIn account. My resume looked like a high schooler's, and I didn't even know what an elevator pitch was. And it was November when we met. It was crunch time. I applying to internships in February. So we were meeting almost weekly, and our meetings were not 30-minute long meetings. They were 4 hours long where we sat there until midnight. Like that's just how they were. So yeah, we really just went through it every week, and she was asking me questions about myself that I have never even thought of. I had to dive so deep into like my own personality to figure out if this was really the true path I wanted to go down. So not only did I grow from a career perspective, but I also grew so much individually.
How did you know those questions to ask, Julia?
Common sense. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
No, I think.
Go ahead.
No, I think it comes from a place of experience myself. So like the reason why I got involved with this program is because, similar to Steve, like I had fantastic mentors. The difference was that I had to work for them. I had to go to a professor to then get a referral, to then find a LinkedIn situation, and then an email, and then follow up on the LinkedIn. But Patrick McConville was worth it. He's fantastic, as most of the people on this phone call know him, as well as Lawrence Heath, who is my other mentor in that situation. They're not easy to get a hold of, but they're always willing to help. So knowing that as well, and I still have those relationships today, kind of taught me what I needed, and then I tailored it for my own experience. I think also being in the workforce, and I didn't have connections to go into the industry that I'm currently in. I'm in media. And there's not a lot of paid social alumni out there that could have been like, yeah, this is what you need to do and how you need to get there. So it's just from experience, and also your whole purpose of interviewing is to get that job, but you also want to feel out if it's the right position. And in order to know the right position, you need to know yourself. So I think that's really where that came from. And also, similar to what Steve said, the difference, and I kind of do this with most things, as Boyd knows, with projects and those types of things. If there's no guidelines, I'll make them. So we had an agenda. She came prepared. She wrote notes afterwards. She sent them to me. We reviewed them, and we had next steps for every single meeting. So a little bit different. It's still, though, I will say, the relationship itself it's not formal. We text all the time. We talk once a week, if not more, even after the internship, because the whole point of this is to build that relationship. You're not a tool to be used, you're a person. So that's like the end goal, as well, as to have that relationship and have that someone that you can go to for questions from not just the internship stance, but from a life stance as well.
Okay, fantastic. One of the things that, and this has worked, we have a couple of different programs around mentorship. This year in the fall, we set up what we call the Business Excellence Program. And that's an opportunity to get students to focus on their careers, to help build their skills, and keep them glued to the college. I think that's a good way of doing it, giving them the support they need to be successful. We want to do that with everybody, but with the smaller group, we think we can do more. So we have a couple people from the Business Excellence here tonight. And I'm going to talk about two of them. One of them is we're going to look at from a mentor perspective. And Jocelyn, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to put you on the spot for one quick question relative to our meeting on Tuesday. So what we did is we got everybody that's in the Business Excellence. We matched them up with a mentor also. So what I'd like to do is, Jacob, if you would introduce CJ, and then CJ, you introduce Jacob, and talk about your relationship as you're just starting out your career, and CJ, you left in 2019. So Jacob, it's all yours.
All right. So yeah, I'm Jacob. My mentor is CJ. As Professor Boyd said, he graduated in 2019. He works at Deloitte now as a consultant in New York City. And like Professor Boyd said, I matched with him through the Business Excellence Program. So it was a really good fit because it was handpicked for me. And I could tell that from day one, like we just clicked, not just like on a professional level in terms of like my goals aligning with his, but also just on like a personal level, which I think is just as important, if not more. And we met a few times over Zoom. I think we met first in around October, almost monthly. I think almost every month, I'm pretty sure. And our meetings, since I am only a freshman, a lot of times it's just where I'm standing, like how I'm feeling about my classes, like what I'm thinking about in terms of like early career goals, just like my aspirations, and just him answering any questions I have about that stuff. So unless I missed anything, CJ, I think you're up.
I think you killed it, Jacob. So yeah, I'm CJ Burke, and my good friend Jacob is my mentoree. And I think I can speak on behalf of all students, because that was pretty recent for me, but also for all alumni, that when a Zoom calendar comes in, a Zoom invite from Jacob comes in on a Friday, it's probably the best thing about my week. So that's always I really look forward to getting to talk with him, seeing kind of what's going on at school, any questions I could answer for him. And I'm really looking forward to being a resource for him over the next 3 to 4 years and help them try and get an internship job and so on and so forth.
Okay, that's good. Did you have any idea what a mentor was, Jacob? What a mentee is, or a mentor when you got here?
A little bit. I mean, I kind of just figured that it would just be someone that could help me, like, just guide me along, just like, you know, kind of just be there if I ever needed them. Not necessarily as hands-on as like it's really been, which has been awesome. It's just been a great, like, someone who I know, like, I can see like every month, and just like so an outlet that I could just talk to about like questions I have, like if something's going on in the world that I'm just curious about, and I want to pick someone's brain, even stuff like that. It's just very hands-on, I think. I didn't expect that.
Okay, great. CJ, why did you want to do this?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate to have some great mentors when I was in Geneseo. I'd like to give a few shout outs to a couple of people on the call, specifically Bob Murray, John Ohlert, and believe it or not, one of my bosses, Mr. Bob Wally. So as soon as I left Geneseo, and even before I left Geneseo, I realized that where I was going was due to people in this community. And I would be doing the college, I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't try and give back to the way that so many people had helped me. So that was by far the main reason why I wanted to get involved. And again, speaking with Jacob, you know, every 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, has just been, it's been great to get connected back with the school. Again, learn about what he's going through, how I can provide some of the mistakes I might have made as a freshman or a sophomore, so he doesn't make the same. And then the things that I might have done well, you know, try and push those along so he can attain those goals as well.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I'm just going to deviate a little bit from the program, and as a moderator, I can do that. We also have another member of the Business Excellent group here, and that's Jocelyn Haynes, and you can see her down there, and or up there, depending where your screen is. And it's really been a fascinating time to work with her. She's actually working with Jonathan Drabeck, which some of you guys know as a mentor. But some of the other things she's involved in, and I just got to say this, is that we did a program on for the Diversity Summit. We did a program on hunger in the pandemic. And I've been involved with food, so we brought in some people. We had a great discussion on it, and Jocelyn was there. And we had a meeting on Tuesday about food awareness in Geneseo and a food pantry. And lo and behold, who comes up on the screen is Jocelyn at the meeting. And this is her first year here. And I just want to give her a shout out. Can you just tell us what things you're working on relative to food in Geneseo? Because I just think this is so cool. That is your first year here, you're already engaged. And what are we talking about for the fall? I think that's a great story to share.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. You know, I know you could do this.
Thanks. Flattered. Yeah, so I am part of a volunteer student club called Food Security Advocates. They're run out of the Center for Community here at Geneseo. And we have recently been pushing for getting a food pantry on campus to make it more accessible to students. We figure, especially given the pandemic, there's an increased need for food in the students that are coming. And currently we run a food delivery program where we're serving, I think, around 70 students. I don't know if it's per month, if I'm being completely honest. I don't want to give you like false numbers, but we're serving at least 20 people on a regular basis each month. And it is grown so much because of the pandemic. So we wanted to find a way that might be more sustainable to manage if this continues to grow in Geneseo.
Mm-hmm. And now what are you one of the people going to be doing in the fall?
Oh, right.
Come on.
So we are looking for someone to act in the position of a coordinator for the food pantry on campus. So I've worked with Garth Freeman in the Center for Community and Professor Boyd here to possibly set up an internship through the School of Business for the coming academic semester.
So there really is, this is just a sales pitch, is that there really is access to food is something that most people take for granted, but we do have students who are food insecure. And I think we look around and take it as an everyday thing. And I think, as Jocelyn would tell you, it is a common occurrence. We have students that are working a couple of jobs and they simply don't make enough, and they don't necessarily have a parental support to be able to provide food. And this program is one that does that, but they've already got a grant for some things, and really looking to, it's sad we have to do this, but actually build access to food in a food pantry. And Jocelyn has taken a great lead and very knowledgeable about it. She's reached out to those in the field. And I think that's great. And you have a mentor too.
Yeah, as you said, I have Jonathan.
Tell them about John.
Yeah, he's great. I actually just had a phone call with him like a day or two ago. We catch up about every month, whether via phone call or email, and he's helped me a lot with internships, and even like if I'm gonna for that diversity summit panel, I tapped into him to help with creating that, and he's been a great guidance to me and just giving me tips that he's gotten through experience.
Do you think on some things you have a common view of the world?
Yes, I do. I was honestly very surprised when you paired me with him, but I think that we both approach the same problems in the world, maybe from a slightly different perspective, but and the end goal is the same for the two of us.
Excellent, excellent. Let's move on now to Kiersten. Welcome.
Hello.
From Women in Business and soon to be the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco.
Yes.
Congratulations on that job.
Thank you.
We're excited to see you. Will be interesting. We won't ask you any questions about what you think is going to happen with inflation or anything else.
Feel free to.
Well, I'm sure. And so if you could just give us a little sense of what Women in Business is, and then introduce Ed.
Okay, so Women in Business Club began around last year, about this time. The club is open to all genders, and the goal was just to connect some like-minded students together. We want to just form a sense of community, encourage personal and professional growth, and just create opportunities to explore different career paths. And then every other meeting, we usually have a Geneseo alumni come in. And last fall, we invited Ed Moore to talk to us about the value of a diverse workforce and different programs that he implemented for underrepresented employees, and just some advice for new hires. Ed is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Rich Products, and he oversees all HR activities. So I guess I can hand it over to Ed to talk more about why he did this and why the topic is so important.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Kiersten, and congratulations on the job. Glad that's worked out for you. Yeah, I think throughout all the comments that others had made here today, I think one common thread is that Geneseo really prepares you for the world, as from that student perspective, and then those of us who are alums. I graduated way back in 1986. So Kiersten has I have about 35 years on you as far as that goes. But for those of us that are alumni, you quickly realize that there's a connection between the world that we're in and where we were at Geneseo, whether it was a few years ago or many years ago. And so I think it's really important to make that connection and to reassure students that the things that they believe are important to the world are important to us alumni who are trying to make a difference in the world as well. And this topic of diversity and inclusion was a very easy one for us to talk about. And Women in Business is actually a group, Mariellen, you'll remember, I think I'll take just a teeny little bit of credit for. When I was an executive in residence, I was surprised to see the women students being a little less active in the classroom and in the conversation than their male counterparts. And so Mariellen and I talked about that and said, you know, it can't be that way. And, you know, our female students should feel just as empowered, just as capable, and just as prepared to get out in the real world. So it was a great chance for us to get together. Kiersten, you might remember that the timing of my talk was such that there had been an incident on campus, and there was a little bit of a desire from everyone to just talk about and reflect on that. And I'm just so impressed with the students at Geneseo today and the passion, the sense of equity and fairness and respect that they have. And I think it points to a very bright future as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Kiersten, do you sense sincerity and commitment from Ed? Did that come across?
Yes, it was.
I phoned it in. Come on, you know that.
So he didn't just tell you stories.
No.
You got the sense he really believes this.
Yes. Well, he told us about how he put in support for a diverse workforce within his own company for us.
Okay. Did it make you feel good?
Yeah, especially because of what was going on with campus, that we did get to reflect all together on that the day after it happened. It was good.
It was just the right time, the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Ed, did you learn from coming to campus? Did it reaffirm what you're doing is the right thing? Did they encourage you?
Yeah, Bob, I think what it does is that it actually creates even a greater sense of urgency. You know, the world is changing rapidly. You know, I'm in one of those gap generations. I'm not quite a boomer, but you know, at the very, very tail end of that. And so the world that many of the people that work within my company and other companies lived in is changing dramatically. And I think, as I said earlier, the optimism that I'm left with every time I interact with students about you know, the world that's coming, the world that's with us now and that's coming, and how equipped today's students and young adults are to deal with that is, I think, a reason for great hope.
Great, thank you, both of you. Now we want to move on. I mean, we have alumni who are mentors. We have them coming to student clubs and talking, and then we have them visiting classes. So Conor, if you could start by introducing yourself and talk about when Bob Murray came to our classes, what we did, and then introduce Bob, who should need no introduction to the group here.
Yeah, sure thing. So I am Conor Hargrove. I'm a senior here at Geneseo, economics major, finance minor. Formerly the president of the Student Managed Investment Fund, which is kind of how I first met Bob. So a number of times, he came a number of times to our class, but I think the one time I remember distinctly happened sometime either in April or May, I'm pretty sure. And we were having a lot of conversations in the Student Investment Fund about how to react to what was going on in the world at the time. I'll share a quick little story here, but I actually had a doctor's appointment on the one day the market tanked like 9% or something like that back in March. My doctor said a heart rate was a little bit too high for my age. I'm like, no, I should look at the stock market. It's fine. And so I had to tell him off. But that was to kind of give you an idea of what was going on. A lot of us didn't really know what was going on in the real world. The market had tanked as much as it had. But then, if you all remember and know, it also had gone up, which we were not expecting. I remember, so in the fund we were having a lot of debates about this. We were having a lot of debates about what to do. Getting back to it, how do pilot the fund through these turbulent times, through untested waters. And Mr. Murray was very helpful to come in and talk to us about kind of what to do. We kind of had some polarizing opinions, Professor Boyd and I, in terms of how to take the approach. But Mr. Murray definitely offered us a lot of advice, and we were able to definitely make some decisions because of that, which I'm sure I'll elaborate on. But Murray, everybody.
Thanks, Conor. Thanks, Conor. It's great to be here. Great to be with everyone. Bob,
So what has been your experience? Why why did you come? But what do you think the reaction to the students was when you, and a couple of times you made some suggestions to us that I think set us back a little bit. Not set us back, but you made us rethink, especially as Conor referred to in March, where, you know, we were thinking, what can we do to hedge the portfolio? And you encouraged us to look forward as to where are the opportunities. What's your reaction to this whole thing?
Listen, I appreciate the opportunity to be with so many bright people today, and it's you know, just kind of refocuses me, and I get all re-impressed by the alum and the students of Geneseo. So it's a great group of people, proud to be a part of it. You know, I started coming back to campus. My first trip back to campus was, I think, in 2014, which was 30 plus years after I graduated. And I got reconnected for very personal reasons. And, you know, it's been fabulous. You know, so many of you are talking about the mentorship program. And CJ, I don't want to pick on you because you gave me a shout out, and CJ is among, I guess, among the mentees that I've worked with, who I feel like we have the most in common. It just feels like we grew up in the same house, you know, 30 or 40 years apart. But CJ said something about being a mentor and looking forward to mentoring for the next 3 or 4 years and helping your mentee get internships and moving forward. And I would just say to the mentors and mentees, this is not a 3 or 4 year role. You know, I've now been doing this for 7 years. I think my first mentee was Steve Barth, who was nice enough to give me a shout out earlier. And Steve's well into his career now, doing fabulously well at Credit Suisse. Steve's married, he's expecting a child, and Steve and I continue to talk on a regular basis, not just about his career, but about what's going on in his life. And so the mentor mentee, you know, I will tell you, I came back to campus to quote unquote give back, but I've gotten a lot more than I've given back. You know, CJ talked about, you know, the highlight of his week is when his mentee calls him. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the highlight, I got an email, a business school alum who's not on the call today, by the name of Adam Kelly. He's based down in Baltimore now. And Adam and I talk once a quarter. And when I get that email from Adam and says, hey, Bob, are you available next week to chat? I get really pumped up for it. You know, I guess I enjoy coming back to campus. I enjoy seeing the students. I enjoy getting up to Main Street. And just where I think you kind of feel the vibe of the school. Maybe it's a little more difficult these days. You know, with the pandemic, I imagine Main Street's a little quieter than it's been in years.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, you could have joined us this afternoon.
Glad to hear that. But listen, you know, the getting back on campus is great. You know, Michelle put out in the chat box a few minutes ago about how impressive it is with the students on the call today. You know, it just kind of reignites your desire to want to get, you know, work with the students at Geneseo when you come back on campus. And you know, Ed, your comments about I enjoyed your comments about diversity and the idea that maybe the males were a little bit more likely to ask questions. I can't say I was conscious of it, but when you said it this evening, I've definitely seen that. So I'm thrilled to see the Women in Business Club, you know, start to get together, and hopefully we can continue to promote that. And you know, some of the work that Jocelyn's doing, to think it, you know, as a Geneseo student, to be thinking about folks that are hungry. I think I was thinking when I was in Geneseo, I was thinking about whether I was going to have the steak or the pasta, you know, for dinner, and certainly wasn't thinking about others. So impressive to see this group together. And I would just say, you know, from my standpoint, can't wait to get back to campus again down the road. You know, mentors and mentees can take on lots of different, lots of different thoughts. Julia Tannenbaum said earlier that she thought that she got matched with her mentee because they similar paths. I said the same thing about CJ. You know, I think we kind of grew up in the same house 40 years apart or something. You know, but there's also folks that, you know, very, very different. Like I got to know Conor through his involvement in the Smith. And I would tell you that I don't think Conor's experience at Geneseo was much like mine at all. I mean, this guy was running the Smith. He was going to the doctor and his heart was pumping because the market was rocking. I didn't even know what the stock market was doing in the 4 years I was in college. So, you know, mentors and mentees, you know, don't have to be. I think they just have to share a desire to want to learn from one another, and the mentor's got to have a desire to want to give back. You know, maybe the mentee that I had the most experience with in my time with Geneseo is also on the call tonight, Alexandra Romanowski.
Oh, wow.
You know, I got to know Alex as an alum at a New York City event, and she ended up coming to work for my firm, Graham Capital, and you know, we worked together for almost 5 years and got to know each other on on just a whole different level. So, you know, these relationships can be much longer than relationships between people at school. And I think, and CJ, you touched upon this. It's exciting. It's as exciting for the mentor as it is for the mentee. Bob, I know I went off script here a little bit.
That's okay. I'm going to go off script too. How have you seen the engagement of the alumni change since 2014?
I think Steve,
either what you're saying and others here. What do you think's different?
Steve Barth brought up the word process, right? I feel like, you know, when I first got back to campus, Steve and I found each other kind of by happenstance. I think it was his name was mentioned earlier, the gentleman from San Francisco. I'm sorry.
Padraig.
Yes, Padraig.
Yes.
Yeah, Padraig, I think, introduced Steve and I, you know, via email or phone call or something. I forget exactly how. But, you know, my early days at Geneseo and kind of my early days as an alum involved in the school, it was more happenstance. It was it was a little bit the squeaky wheel got the grease, right? Mm-hmm. The students who were the most motivated would find you, right? Alex found me at a New York City event because, you know, she wasn't afraid to walk up and say something to me. Steve found me because Padraig put us together. It was happenstance, but now through this program that I think Steve has had a lot to do with putting together and others have a lot to do with putting together, there's a process in place, right? Bob Boyd, I think your involvement, like, hey, let's match these students with these alum. You know, listen, Geneseo, it's not Harvard, you know, it's not Notre Dame or Boston College or Villanova with all these alumni connections all over Wall Street, but you know, it's got to start somewhere. And if it starts with a Zoom call, you know, with 40 or 50 people on it, that's where it starts. So I guess the big change, Bob, to answer your question is I see more of a process orientation to it now. You know, candidly, the executive and residence programs, you know, I guess the goal workshops have been happening for a while, but I don't think that was specific to the business school, right? That was a little bit broader for the alum. But
and we've learned. I think that's a good point. We've built some process to make it work. I think instead of just having random mentors just happen, we're being a little more, I won't say cautious, but more focused in saying who would be a better fit for whom. And I'm very lucky that going back before Steve, most of you guys I've had. So if you graduated probably since 2010 and you're on the call, we know each other. So it's like, as I know the new students, we can better match people. And I think that's it's happened already. But it will continue to. So Bob, thank you since 2014. We appreciate it.
One more shout out if I could. I remember one of my first events in New York City was an event at Fitch, and John Ohlert was the speaker. And John mentioned very briefly in his intro today about how he worked with a number of Geneseo alum. I remember he put an org chart up on his slides that day, and he had a list of all of the Geneseo alum who had come to work with him at Fitch over the years, and how they had excelled at Fitch and where they had gone on, beyond Fitch. And I remember sitting there in that audience that day, taking that as a challenge to say, boy, here's an alum who's having a positive impact on students' careers. Time to get to work, Bob. Time to start doing that. And I hope out of this call today, a few of you, leave the call with the same thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bob. Good thoughts. And we weren't off track. This is a discussion, and we're learning. People visiting classes, and now that we have Zoom, it's more easy to do some of this as opposed to a whole day. But I would want to take it. Can I just, and I'm going to do a sales pitch at this point. Word from our sponsor. One of the things that our Student Managed Investment Fund has continually evolved, it's grown. It's really, we've adapted a lot of new things. We're doing a lot more than ever. And one of the things we're looking at is how can we be more ESG focused? And we did original work. Zach did some of the work, and we're pretty good now when you start looking at it. But we'd like to, with our Student Managed Investment Fund, become more ESG and still produce a great return. So Tom Hank, you're there. And you had an interest at one point, you commented back on ESG. So I just want to introduce you to Ryan Austin, who is the current president of Smith. And maybe he could give you a little update on what we're doing with ESG. But if you could give us your perspective on ESG, we'd find that helpful. So I'd just like to make that introduction. And if you two guys can talk and maybe talk about how we can do a better job on that, I think that would, that's just a word from our sponsor. Now back to the program. Thank you, Tom, Ryan.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do.
Thank you. We come back to George, who looks like the Brooklyn Bridge. Are you in Brooklyn right now?
Just a very nice Zoom backdrop.
Oh, okay.
Perfected Zoom backdrops this year.
Okay. So can you maybe introduce yourself, what you were recruiting for, and why did you come to Geneseo?
Sure. My name's George Sullivan, class of 2007, econ undergrad. I was pretty active in the fire department and the gold program while I was on campus. And what I'm doing now is managing a global operations team at Qualtrics. And as I was trying to build out our team, I was looking for students who were smart enough to learn the job and poised enough to handle the pressure, communicative enough to be able to explain highly technical concepts to people who lack a technical background. And I think, I heard a reference to Villanova and Notre Dame and a couple of other great schools you see on Wall Street. But I got my start in corporate finance, and I remember learning there just the value of a liberal arts education, that it's great if you know the numbers, but it really doesn't mean very much if you can't translate that for people who don't understand the numbers, right? And so now that I'm in a position to recruit for a technical role, I was looking for folks who had the same discipline and skill set and breadth of knowledge that comes from the liberal arts curriculum at Geneseo. And that's why I came back. And I knew we would find people who were scrappy and had really good leadership abilities, as well as those communication and technical skills.
Mariellen, tell us about yourself and your experiences with George.
Hi, so I'm Mariellen. I'm a senior here, business administration major. I found George actually through pretty much handshakes events that the school kind of puts together. George actually came in with another alumni, and they presented this opportunity of working at Qualtrics in Utah, which was a crazy concept for me, but also being a tech company and everything. But I hopped on and I kind of heard all about it, and I was hooked right from the beginning.
Okay. Now, did you get coaching through this, through George? How did the process work? Tell us about this. How did that work?
So after that initial call, he kind of said, throw your resumes at me and we'll kind of go from there. So there was a couple different people who did that. Also another boy on my cross country team who's already graduated, he also got a job too. So we kind of all got together and connected, and lots of Zoom calls, lots of phone calls. We talked about the interviews. We talked about questions that were probably going to be thrown. I threw some of my own guesses and he helped me with that stuff out there too. So definitely the coaching was there, but it was the most helpful when it came time for the interviews.
And you're joining the team, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure of that. I was pretty sure. I didn't want to.
No, yes.
Mariellen rejected our offer.
But I'm glad. So are you excited to join the team? And where are you going to be working from?
So I'm so excited. I'm moving out to Salt Lake City in August, actually.
Okay, great. Were you surprised, George, about the talent you found here?
You know, I guess my glib response is like, oh, of course not, because look at all of us, right? But
okay,
but I think, but my more serious thought to this is, you know, I'm not surprised because the amount of responsibilities Geneseo students are juggling, right? Like positions them really well from a maturity standpoint when they do get into that first role. Just because of some of the experiences that they've had. And, you know, one thing that really stood out about Mariellen is that she's a student athlete and she's working when she's not doing athletics, right? And she's doing great leadership activities on campus in addition to being a student athlete, and like has top grades. And I think Mariellen's one of the very best students we interviewed from any school this cycle. And she's going to do great things here. And I think, Mariellen, you're terrific, but I don't think that's unique. Like, it's not that like we got the one, right? I think that Geneseo students have the formative experiences necessary to thrive in that environment when given the opportunity.
Excellent, excellent. Would you recommend other alumni to recruit here at Geneseo?
I think I certainly would. And for the rest of us who are out in some new place, right, being in the Salt Lake area, the first thought when there was the opportunity to recruit was like, how quickly and how many Geneseo students can we get out here to really help build up that network? This is a great place and it's rapidly growing. And so I think Geneseo students should be on the lookout, not just for opportunities at Qualtrics, but for employers who are also looking to recruit back at Geneseo, because there's a lot of really great opportunities.
Excellent, excellent. Next one we're going to do is some one-on-one career preparation, and it's probably a little bit around mentoring, but it's also a very focused thing. So Alyssa, if you want to, there you are. I didn't. With Zoom, you move around all the time. Mm-hmm. So Alyssa, can you maybe introduce yourself and who you worked with and all that?
Yeah, so I'm Alyssa Locascio. I'm a senior accounting major here at Geneseo, graduating in May. Very bittersweet. But I worked with Adam Gurian, who Mary Cannon actually put us in contact. And from there, I sent him my resume and we scheduled a Zoom call. And then there's where he kind of—
Wait a minute, you're accounting? Wait a minute, Adam, you what do you know about accounting? How did that?
I know how to call the CFO's phone number. That's what I know.
Oh, okay. Keep going then. I just want to make sure I'm just trying to make that connection.
Yeah, so then from there, Adam gave me a lot of tips and feedback on how to improve my resume, which I greatly appreciated. And we went into just practicing some basic interview questions, keeping answers clear, concise, to the point, and definitely helped me and made me more comfortable when moving into the interview process last fall.
Okay. Did you sometimes get frustrated with him that he wanted you, maybe made suggestions you didn't understand or didn't like or agree with?
With him, no, never. Maybe a little bit with myself in the beginning when I would be practicing outside of our call. I felt like pretty good to start practicing more further. So I'd have like friends interview me and family members, and I'd be like, oh no, like I forgot to mention this. Like I want to make sure I highlight this. So maybe in the beginning I was like, oh man, but like as time went on, my answers became like second nature. I definitely became more comfortable, but never frustrated with him ever.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, Adam, how did you end up working with Alyssa?
Well, I mean, I've done a variety of things with the School of Business. You know, I did the panels, smaller sessions, and I've been participating in the marketing programs. But Dr. Zuckerman put me in touch with Mary Cannon, who I think I saw her on the call here, and she arranged for me to interact with Alyssa, and I think also 4 or 5 other students to kind of go through resumes and you know, and interview type questions and things like that. And, you know, I find that, you know, coming out of school as an undergrad, forget about graduate school, but, you know, you have to realize who you are going into an entry-level position for an interview. The interviewer should not expect you to be able to solve world hunger as an entry-level person, right? You know, and you have to recognize that. And it's also okay to say, I don't know. Right? Or I don't know specifically the answer to that question, or be honest in your answers. And just the big thing is being, is just the preparation. You know, like Alyssa said, the basics around knowing the company, what they were about, what they can expect from you as an employee, what you're looking for, making sure that as a first-year employee, work-life balance isn't at your top list of requirements. You know, things like that. But I think it's, you know, it's important. And, you know, I think Alyssa, as well as the other 4 or 5 folks were, I was really surprised with the amount of things that were on their resumes as far as accomplishments. I think if I remember correctly, not only was Alyssa, she was at the top, you know, an officer in her fraternity. She taught dance classes, you know, and I actually remember having that conversation about the fact that you taught dance classes, how to deal with kids, parents, other teachers to me as an interviewer, that would be a huge thing to talk about. Like, how did you handle all that? Because that's really indicative more than whether you had a 3.75 GPA. Okay. And those types of things are, you know, really important. But, you know, as it's been previously mentioned, and, you know, Ed, you said 1986, just so you're not alone. 1987, but basically from 1987 to 2008 or 2009, my only interaction with Geneseo was coming back once a year for the Omega Challenge. Okay. And then in 08, I think it was 08 or 09, Dr. Zuckerman asked me to come back and do a panel in Newton, I think. And so that was kind of the kickoff of starting to get back involved with the school. But, you know, it's really impressive to see where everybody is going. And the interesting thing is, I was on the phone with John Alert last night, and we were just chatting briefly about how many inroads alumni make for Geneseo, coming out of Geneseo. Mm-hmm. And there's far and wide, Geneseo has this unbelievable reach. So it's really important. And I always put it out there whenever I, you know, talk to folks from Geneseo, is use a first step for tapping into that alumni is use LinkedIn and grow your network, right? Mm-hmm. I've never met an alumni who said no to somebody reaching out to them. And
I got to keep that in mind as I reach out to different people.
But you know, networking, no. Nobody likes to network, right? It's the hardest thing you can do when you're looking for a job. And Alyssa, I think I told you this too, is, you know, make that list. Right? Family, friends, parents, friends, all those types of things to try and tap, all those types of people to try and tap into opportunities. And, you know, Bob and I, when I was up in Geneseo one time, I still, even with my iPad and my computer, I still keep a yellow habit, right? Because some things I just need to write down. And if and make that list, you know, of all the people that you know, and can they introduce you to somebody else, and really leverage that. It's the biggest point of recommendation I can make to anybody that's kind of, whether you're coming out of school or looking for a next level job or whatever it may be, just continue on a regular basis to build that network.
Excellent. Super. Thanks, Adam. Alyssa, and you are going to Eisner unless you change your mind, right?
Yeah, I'm going to Eisner.
You're going to Eisner Amper. So congratulations on that. That's great. So that's sort of to give everybody a sense of, I think we have a lot of alumni involvement. And I think, Adam, as you said, there's so many alumni. And I think when you start digging into where do we have people and what do people do, the more people we can engage, alumni can benefit from it. Students clearly benefit it. And we build the brand and the reputation, which is going to help us recruit new students to keep coming in and keeping the process going. So I just want to take a minute and thank everybody who came tonight, everybody that talked, everybody that shared. For those of you that mentored and we didn't get a chance to talk to you, I know you've done it, so thank you. And for those of you that are in New York City, and we've done the New York City trip in the past, I don't know what we're doing in the fall, but maybe we should start thinking about the New York City trip. Just saying, to start that thinking process.
Vaccines are starting to flow. That could very well be a reality, by the fall.
I'm optimistic.
So Bob, do you mind if I just say one more thing?
You can say anything you want, John.
There's so many great takeaways from tonight, but you heard a lot of the 80s thrown around. What just strikes me overwhelmingly is a lot of the folks from that time, as I look at Steve in the bottom, I saw Bob Wiley earlier, we got involved because we didn't have that. And I sit here and look at, I actually came back right around when Adam did. I got involved with the Fed Challenge team, and that's what led to so many people working at Fitch, because they just overwhelmed me with how good they were. And that was broad. That was across a number of things, and I was like, just impressed. And this is coming from a guy who was fortunate enough to then go on to Fordham and then go to Harvard, right? So, but that kind of underdog spirit is what really made Fitch what it was. I think is definitely thrives through Geneseo. And I just think of the numbers, right? That, from CJ, who I'm fortunate enough to know really well, that you guys are getting involved so much earlier than we did. So I the analyst in me couldn't help, as we were talking about it, to think about it in these terms. But, if you think about, we were here in 2010, and I just think about the involvement now, the amount of lives we can touch is really, truly unbelievable.
Absolutely.
So I just thought, I know how motivated so many of you are, but Bob Murray talked about how good it feels giving back. It really warms my heart that, we're on this path and that all of you are doing what you're doing. So I can't thank you enough. And, I hope tonight was good for all of you. I know it was really good for me.
Thanks, John. One of the things that I found on Zoom is if we were in person, we might clap, and clapping on Zoom is a little hard. Okay. So the church I go to, we cohabitate with the Emmanuel Church of the Deaf. So this is clapping. Okay. So instead of us doing this, why don't we do this to everybody? Best wishes, and we will see everybody.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you all
Great
so
stuff,
much.
everybody.
Yeah.
Good to see you all.
Yep.
Cheers.